Amazing. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Urvashi Rai Kumar, the product marketer at CarteNav, a PAL company, and I'll be a moderator for this session. As you know, it's unlocking the CarteNav ecosystem with AIMS-ISR, C4, and MissionLink. Today, we'll be showcasing how the CarteNav ecosystem enables seamless coordination among mission systems. You'll see how AIMS-ISR and AIMS-C4 come together to support a dynamic real-time operations, along with an introduction to MissionLink, our newest solution that's designed to unify data exchange across all platforms. Joining us today are three key members of our product team who've helped us shape this ecosystem. We have Scott Richardson, VP of Product. We have Jane Fulcher, Director of Product. And we have Mark McManus, Software Architect. They'll be walking us through the demo and will be available to answer all your questions. So feel free to post your questions in the Q&A section on your right, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. And thanks again for being here. Let's get started. Scott, over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks for joining, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and then very shortly turn off my video for everyone's benefit. So here we go. So first off, welcome again. I will apologize in advance. As many people know, I'm pretty passionate about these conversation points, and I want to let Mark and Jane interrupt me at any point in time as we go through things. So in good organized fashion, just a quick agenda for today. We've already accomplished the introductions, at least at the surface level. We're going to review the ecosystem. So these are the products that CarteNav has been bringing to market and how they connect together. We're going to do a special deep dive into CarteNav MissionLink, how that works and where it comes to, and probably the exciting part, we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration today. It's going to be primarily from some video I captured with the system live. A couple of disclaimers, you'll hear me talk about it a few times through. I was using all the latest and greatest versions of our software, which is always interesting when you've got as many talented developers as we do contributing back to the products. And we're going to walk through a couple of scenarios with it. And then I really do hope you guys have some excellent questions, and we'd love to go through those. So without further ado, just a bit of background on CarteNav. We really are about mission system software. We are very much platform agnostic. So we have our systems working in ground, airborne, fixed wing, rotary wing, UAS, naval programs. For us, it's really about sensor control and how do you get information from these powerful sensors to someone that needs to make decisions. We've been around since 2002. A couple of key things. Our software is ITAR free, which lets us do our solutions internationally. And we have two kind of major products. AIMS-ISR is for the local operating pictures, that's sensor control, the ability to extract information from sensors and present that back to an operator. And we also have AIMS-C4. And AIMS-C4 is a web-based stack that allows to build a common operating picture. So for an example, and I'll show you a couple slides in a second, you could have a number of platforms running AIMS-ISR feeding back into C4, and thereby giving decision makers a way of viewing mission data as it's happening. We are a part of PAL Aerospace, who is also a part of Exchange Income Corporation. And right now we have, this is a number, I should probably have the ticker going up always on this one from the marketing team, but we have well over 125 customers in 60 countries and 600 plus deployments. So we have a lot of software in a lot of spots, which has been great. We learn and like to listen to our operators. So special thanks to anyone joining who's a customer. As always, feel free to feedback to the team here on your suggestions, because that's what makes the software excellent. So our core products, as I mentioned, and Mark can hop in here as well whenever he likes, as can Jane. So AIMS-ISR is really about multi-sensor, multi-platform. It builds that local operating picture. So that's things like radar control, consuming tracks of various types, and giving people the ability to bring those in an easy way. Some of the best examples of that are using a radar to detect a target and cross-cueing an EOIR camera on it to identify the target. Our software has a mission system framework to it, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. It's designed to be very configurable and very customizable, so it can meet a lot of different operations. And then we have AIMS-C4. AIMS-C4 is a browser-based common operating tool. So unlike AIMS-ISR, which is an application that runs on the platform, on a computing platform next to the operators usually, C4 is a web-based tool. So it means anyone with a web browser and the correct credentials can access the information. Most importantly, and this is where the product's been evolving, we are really a nexus for ISR data distribution. So because C4 is hosted on a server and has access to all the platforms and the users, it's a place where you can gather information while a platform is flying. You can analyze information afterwards, but you can also distribute data from third-party systems to and from C4 and to AIMS-ISR even. I want to open for Mark and Jane just to jump in if they had any comments on the two product sides.
Not much to add on the AIMS-ISR side from what you said at this point, Scott. Largely, I think the sort of critical mention is that we're building out AIMS-ISR to really very much be a mission system framework. So a framework of technologies, applications that can be put together in many different configurable ways to satisfy any mission need.
Awesome. And ultimately, it's about mission success. That means doing it as effectively as possible, as safely as possible, and helping to get decisions made as quickly as possible. So people have seen this slide before from me if you've did through a presentation, but this is that whole cycle of how does information get planned, how does a platform execute the operation, and what's that cycle of intelligence look like? And this really brings us to that middle piece of real-time collaboration and tasking. And that's going to be a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how can you exchange information effectively, and how can our products ecosystem connect to third parties and really give a value. So when you look at our ecosystem, there's a couple of ways as you think about this. You have the mission system side. So whether that's on any kind of platform we talked about, we have our AIMS-ISR software, which is the front end that gets interacted with by the operator. But we also have our AIMS mission framework. And this is the series of applications and tools that work behind the scenes to consume information from sensors and send information out as well. With C4, we have this near real-time data exchange that happens. So using sort of some compression algorithms and the ability to customize what information goes to and from, we're able to feed C4 with information from the platform to give that view back in for the common operating picture. And of course, you've got AIMS-C4 users, any number of them, accessing very easily into that data picture with a web browser. And this is where it gets a little more interesting. Now we have on the C4 side, three kind of key components. We've got our track import, our track export, and what our biggest topic today is going to be is the AIMS MissionLink side. A little peek, and I won't go into too much detail here, but AIMS 10, as I talked about, there's a CarteNav mission framework. These services and applications can actually be deployed throughout the network where it makes the most sense to. So as an example, if you had a high requirement for recording video and storing imagery, you could take our media service and actually run that on a dedicated computing platform with lots of storage and let it just go crazy and store there. Or in the most simple of applications, these things work seamlessly behind, and the user interface is just what the operators are interacting with. That interoperability and our ability to connect to a number of sensors is really what CarteNav has been doing for 20 plus years. So whether that's a really simple track information or full up radar control, whether that's consuming data natively or transmitting something or transforming something to go back out again, that's really our bread and butter. And that's over kind of any protocol you can kind of picture that'd be normal in the industry. One other important piece is that sensor plugin capability actually lets us connect both with real sensors and simulated sensors. So our software products can go right from a training environment into a SIL environment into deployed environments with the same operator experience. And that plugin capability also means common use. So if I learn to operate a particular sensor in our software with the GUI side, The operation of a different manufacturer's sensor is very, very simple to learn. I might have some new features that pop up, but the general command and control and the way it interacts is very commonized, which makes that whole ability to train and deploy just incredibly simple. So now I'm going to get Mark to talk a little bit here as we go through some of these things, but we talked about AIMS being that mission framework. So that means we have sort of all of our existing sensors that we integrate with. So anything we've already taken the effort to consume an ICD, and now we can communicate with that sensor. We also have a number of generic sensor types, whether that's an NMEA camera capability, consuming comma-separated values, cursor-on-target tracks, KLV cameras, DF and ADSB templates, really standard ways of communicating. Those, as I talked about, plugins are available. We can also do new sensors. So obviously our team can build sensor integration. We also have an available SDK for tracks and cameras that would let third parties do that integration piece. And we have track templates to make that quite simple to do. Well, simple for smart folks like Mark, who are developers, that kind of piece. Also, we have our network export and plugins. So that is not just consuming data, but what can we do to send out information in standard fashions? And of course, we also have the CarteNav MissionLink. When we talk about our configuration and extendability, this is where Mark's going to have some fun with you, I hope. So, Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about AML and kind of what that enables at the GUI side?
Yeah, so sure. AML is sort of a newer technology that we've been working on here at CarteNav. As you can see by the title, it stands for the very creative name of AIMS Markup language. And basically what it is an XML definition to define user interface and to link that user interface up with our backend command system and modeling system to receive data. And then further, you can add functionality to these forms, these panels that you create through the XML definition using Lua script. So for anybody who's familiar with sort of HTML and JavaScript kind of development, sort of web development or web page development at the simplest level, this is kind of similar support within AIMS. So by using our XML definition to define what some user interface will look like, you automatically get the look and feel, the theming capabilities of AIMS, the styling that the rest of AIMS has, but you don't have to go through the complexity of defining all your user interface and interaction with that interface in a compiled C++ language, which also means that it can be extended to a deployed version of AIMS without coming back to CarteNav, or without CarteNav having to recompile and go through that whole dev cycle to do those parts. And then that allows us to create things like custom camera panels, custom radar UI panels. In fact, most of our camera panels and radar UI panels, or some of our radar UI panels in AIMS-ISR now already use this technology internally. And then, and now we've been extending it and pushing it out so it can be used a little more externally by our customers and integrators. And that's right down to things like our menu system and our overlay system, things that show up in maps, things that show up in the menus. That's all defined in this AIMS markup language. So we can really very much customize all that. And all those things can be like hot loaded while AIMS is running, so you can see what kind of changes you make.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. No, that's great. And I think during the demo, I'll make a couple points for anyone who may be an ISR user already, particularly in the sort of the AIMS 10 side. You'll see some new layouts that are actually leveraging this ability to customize. You'll see a couple of new drawers with some functionality that's pretty cool. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the demo side. Thanks, Mark.
No problem.
So you saw this slide before, this idea that we have this ecosystem and we have AIMS-C4. I'm going to focus in a little bit on the data distribution side. And Jane, hop in here at any point you want. We'll talk a little bit more about the integration pieces too. So C4, because it's always there, has some unique capabilities to connect not just to our tool sets, but to third-party tools as well. So as an example, we can consume things like cursor on target from TAC server. We can bring those in and they appear as global tracks inside C4. So it's not associated to a particular platform or mission, but instead it's consuming a track data that might come in. This is quite useful for connecting to systems that might always be on, or if you picture there may be a larger ISR system that's doing all kinds of track correlation and merging, this gives the C4 users a really interesting picture into other tools. So that ability to kind of take information we might send out or information a third party send out and make it appear as an object in the map with some properties is really powerful. In the same way, we can actually take even the ones we've just received in the input and we can send those out. So we have the ability to take information from C4, package that up in a few different formats and a few different protocols, and send that out to a third party, or in some cases, even back into a deployed ISR. So as an example, I could use the first component to import track data from a cursor on target track set. I could then share that back out to an airborne mission system with a very low bandwidth consequence. So I can kind of brief that common operating picture, now can be given to the mission system operator that's on the platform. And then we have sort of the big topic today, which is this AIMS MissionLink API is what I'm calling it in this case. So this is, and we'll talk about it a little bit in some more detail, but these are time sequenced events with the ability to define some data that gets stored. Because there's an API, third parties can receive and push to that. So it gives us a lot of flexibility that way. And again, it's a way that you can really exchange information, particularly think of it as sequenced events with attachments, things that might be of interest to a whole bunch of parties in different ways. And I'll go in a little bit in the next slide, but that ability for then any integration point to decide what to do with that information is where this gets pretty interesting. Now, you'll notice that fancy animation that just appeared. What I've added here is potentially where you might have MissionLink nodes or servers or the application running. Obviously, C4 is key in this case. So we have an instance of MissionLink running inside the C4 architecture, and that's acting very much as a hub for all of the other MLink servers that might need to replicate data. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So I'm going to talk in general terms, and I'll leave some room for Jane and Mark to kind of talk a little bit about some of the deployment sides and the tool. But for everyone on the line, MLink is essentially a lightweight Rust application that gets deployed as MLink server nodes. So those little red boxes I showed. So it has an ability to get and post, have people get or post messages over HTTP. So the advantage here is that I can receive information from my MissionLink, and I can choose not to even display it to my operators in the third-party view, or I could decide that it's going to ring an alarm bell in a different software application. So, and the MissionLink software also has that ability to synchronize those events in order to make sure that they stay in synchronization if there's a low bandwidth environment. So as an example, C4, as I talked about, the MLink deployment in C4 is going to essentially be a hub deployment. So it's always on, and it can consume information from the other parties and allow for that to distribute. So I've got my platform 1. When I connect up to, when my instance of MissionLink connects back to C4, I now have my data's replicated, and I can post events and receive event information. In the same way, platform 2 hops up, and now we can have all a common MissionLink, different MissionLinks, but that data is completely synchronized across. So I'm going to leave some room now for Jane to provide some insight of this one from the C4 side.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. As Scott mentioned, C4 is really the hub for MissionLink, and MissionLink is actually deployed just as a service within the C4 Kubernetes cluster, and as such, it inherits things like the C4 access and authentication integration that it has with the end user's sort of LDAP system. And what that means is any data access controls within C4 that are used to segment data, maybe between platforms or missions or whatever, are also applicable to MissionLink. So you can use sort of secure access controls there. And what C4 also offers is that ability to grant those third parties access. So access management is controlled within C4. We can create a service account for third parties and provide an API authentication key. And that's all managed within the C4 administration portal, and then can be provided again, that secure access to the specific groups as needed.
Awesome, Jane. Thank you very much for that. And on the right-hand side, you'll just notice a very kind of preliminary screenshot. I will never claim to be a developer, but the system comes with Swagger documentation, which really lets you exercise the system and understand how you can get and post information back into the MLink side. So again, very, very powerful and very simple from that piece. It's designed to be quite lightweight and extendable and not super prescriptive. So there's some basics that are assumed, and then after that, it's about how does this get deployed in a real environment. And as an example, even CarteNav internally, what you're going to see demonstrated, I would say, and Mark and Jane, feel free to hop in this, we just started really customizing that integration. So you'll see some UI elements, but there's more things we plan to do in the roadmap. Is that a fair comment, guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, Jane, to talk over you. Yeah, it's absolutely a fair comment. And as Scott said, MLink and the events sent are very much not prescriptive, meaning that anybody who wants to communicate with MissionLink can sort of define their own content, and then both on AIMS and AIMS-C4, we can read that even if we don't know what that is, and then still display that, hey, there are these events happening throughout MissionLink. We may not know what to do with them right now, but yeah, they are happening. So it sort of provides the ability with everybody on the system to see what's happening, and then when we see something that it specifically knows what to do with through a tagging system, which you'll see in Scott's demo going forward, each platform can then decide to do its own, each platform can then decide to do its own thing with its own messages.
Awesome. Okay, so the exciting part now, the demonstration side. And do not be shy to poke questions into the piece here. I'm going to hopefully, can everyone confirm they're now seeing not my PowerPoint anymore?
Yeah, all good.
Awesome. So as I explained before, and we had some interesting fun, or I had some particular fun recording some of these interactions. Shout out to our team and to Aaron Van Slyke from the UI design side. Our software is looking so much the same that you'll actually see during this demo, I purposely put little black segments as I moved from ISR to C4 to show how this system works. It was really interesting to watch how our theming is quite common across the line. So what you're looking at right now is AIMS-ISR. In this particular piece, I've just got a very simple zoomed in screen. I'm basically looking just at the software with a map, and I'm going to basically turn the video on, and we're going to start something that we do with all of our software is generate a new mission. So that'll be kind of the first task here. So we're going to go out and go with a new mission. When that new mission gets generated, the new mission dialog pops up. You'll notice, for anyone who's used AIMS, that there's a new option now called mission links. So there could be any number of mission links that I may be able to connect to, and then basically think of it as connecting to a stream of events. So in this case, I've called it task 01 from the MissionLink side when it was established. So I'm going to know as this platform, this ISR fixed wing platform, that I have just gotten a task 01. So in this case, I'm just going to set up and go fly my mission now. So in this case, once this starts up, we're going to pick the 01. Actually, I lied. We're going to pick the 02, hit mission start. We're going to populate some of our mission properties. These mission properties are what go back into C4 and help C4 decide where it's going to show up, what platform it is, and do some connections underneath for things like what the IP address is to connect. So I've gone into capture mode now in AIMS-ISR. My platform's here. I'm starting to pick up some AIS tracks. You'll notice that little black piece I mentioned. I've now moved over to C4. And in C4, I can now see I've got a new mission showing up here. I'm going to turn that on and sort of center my map on it so I can see those tracks now coming through from the ISR deployment. Again, at this point, We haven't done anything fancy with our tasking, and you'll see what happens next. So when I move back into ISR now, you're going to see I've opened up my event panel, and I'm going to create a new event that will be passed through MissionLink. In this case, I'm going to type some very long words here just so I can talk about it. I'm basically going to create an event with a description to it. Back into C4 now, you can see on the top side, I've got some notifications. And on this bottom panel, this event panel, you can now see I've got an event that came in saying that we're now flying. What's going to happen now, so if you can just, we're not going to try to really fly a long mission, but we've been perhaps flying for a little while, doing a planned surveillance route. So I was just supposed to fly along the coast. When lo and behold, we had a report of some environmental concerns from a ship. So a third party has now passed on to us a route they would like to make sure the aircraft has covered. Back to my disclaimers, this is some canned data that we're running through, so I can't really control the platform, but I'm going to put this route in the general area, and hopefully you understand. So what the C4 user is doing now is just going to browse, in this case, to a local file and pick up a GPX file. Here it is. C4 is going to recognize there's a route here. I can open it and preview it. I can see that. I could also import it right there as well into C4. And now I'm going to post that into the MissionLink. And because of the tag that's been used, AIMS-ISR is going to immediately recognize that there's been a route shared. So on my MissionLink, I received an event with an attachment to the GPX. And then, Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the magic that went on behind the scenes to hook up to grab that out of the MissionLink stream?
Yeah, sure. As we said in the last slide before we started the demonstration, MissionLink is sort of a stream of events, and they're not really prescribed as far as what's in them and what's not in them. So our tagging system allows us to sort of specify what's in them. So one application can specify a particular tag. In this case, Scott specified a tag called route pending, which basically says, here's the recommended route I'd like you to fly. And then when AIMS-ISR received that, it doesn't really, AIMS-ISR by itself doesn't really know anything about the route pending event. So in our event log that Scott showed, you will see, and I think it will come up here in the video after I'm done talking, where that shows up in the log in the events panel. But this is where we tie MissionLink into the AML I discussed. We have an ability to hook up custom AML or custom scripts written in Lua to MissionLink events. So now we can really customize AIMS-ISR to do anything specific for any particular deployment of the product for that particular MissionLink event. So in this case, we have a bit of Lua script running behind the scenes that is watching the events, and when it sees an event come in that has the route pending tag, it then knows that the content of that event is a GPX file. So it grabs that GPX file, parses it out, and then creates an event in AIMS. If a particular deployment or installation decides that it doesn't want to do that anymore, it's just a matter of removing that script. Or if we want to handle something special with another event type, it's just a matter of providing, I say just a matter, and we still have to write the script, but providing a new script without having to bake it into AIMS, recompile the software, and do a complete redelivery of the product. So yeah, so that's how MissionLink is kind of tying the worlds of customizable AML to the MissionLink software.
Thanks, Mark. And I think it really emphasizes one of the important concepts, the fact that someone has posted something to MissionLink. I think in this case, and by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, in this case, we consumed that route, but we could decide whether or not to display it in a panel, what kind of color to display it, what kind of software actions to have. So it really is very, very open for interpretation.
Absolutely.
So what's kind of happened here now is essentially the operator has gone, I've got my mission running. I've now decided to accept this task. So by opening up the event and already having a stacked element, I've decided to accept the task. So what's going to happen now is we're going to flip back over to C4 yet again. In this case, you can see a notification, and you'll notice a couple things. It has a different coloring on the notification bar. So if my panel wasn't already open, I could easily act that. I could also dismiss it. But in this case, as kind of a loose piece, C4 has colored that differently because it was an accepted task. So now the C4 users understand that this platform has accepted this task. And if you saw, there was information that already started happening. I started to gather pictures, generate different track types, and just as a core feature of the ecosystem, I'm now seeing there's a thumbnail that might be of interest to me. I'll now pull that from the aircraft back into C4 so I can take a look and inspect this object. So in this case, I've really done kind of a basic operation while I was flying. In the next illustration, we're going to turn it around a little bit. In this case, we're going to use C4 as a planning mechanism. A couple things right here. You can see there's actually two mission links. Again, these are the same two mission links you saw available when AIMS-ISR started. These two mission links allow the C4 user to declutter what they're looking at and just to sort things in a way that makes sense to them. So in this case, same kind of concept, but there is no mission flying right now. So unlike last time where I had a platform already showing up there, I don't have one. I'm going to do the same idea on task 01 this time, apply that same route, and I'm getting ready, same exact feature sets that you saw before. And I'm going to send that off and running. I think I'm going to look at the preview first, though. I always like to look at the preview just to see what that route looks like, and then we're ready to send that off. So that's now been posted back to MissionLink. On the ISR side this time, you're going to notice that I'm starting with a very fresh interface. So this is a new mission. I haven't done anything yet. So back to that same component, I'm going to start up a new mission. Same idea, I can pick which mission link I want to connect to, and this time we're going to go to the 01, unlike the last time, 02. And you'll see instantly, in fact, so instantly you won't even see it in the software. There's another demo coming up a little later on that you'll catch it come through. But because I already joined that mission link, I've already imported that route, and I'm ready to go. So there's the route now that I'm able to fly. Again, all the normal operations start now. You can see up in my event panel, I've also got 7 different events that have come up. I could be notified of different priority, just depending on how we want to treat that stream of data that's coming from the MissionLink server. And here's that route I received. I'll use a couple of new features in AIMS now. I'll get an idea of what this coverage might be for the route. I don't actually have a radar today, so I'm going to actually go back into my layers. I'll turn off my sensor coverage and turn off radar. Now I'm just getting some idea of what my visual and my optics coverage might be if I flew this route. And again, lots of options to pop things in and out of view. I will stop here for just a half second. So we're kind of just, again, back to operating the mission software now. This panel you're seeing on the right is a bit scary because Scott and Steve Irvine built it, which maybe scares Mark a little bit, but it does tell you the kind of customization you can do. So the team has done an amazing job in the software with what we call our command system. So any UI element that has a command system is available in buttons, in hotkeys, and now in this AML component that Mark talked about. And this is, I would call, the beginner's version. We can have symbology, we can have different sizes, all kinds of flexibility. It's very simple, as Mark showed in kind of that other slide. I can just set a size and basic element, and then the team is taking care of how that looks. So it's not like I can make a button look terrible. Well, I probably could if I tried hard. But you get things like when I picked the full screen button that you see over here, I inherit the status. So you can tell already the software is in full screen mode just by the status in that AML button. And the fact that I can really do a nice big UI layout and just grab these panels is absolutely awesome. So again, we're now seeing that mission happening. I'm going to go back into the event panel here in a second. Again, same concept. I can see all the stream, and I can also do any new event that I'd like to put in. And again, this time I'm just going to do another one. I'm going to say accept the task and just add a little extra description this time that the route is being flown. Again, that's posted back to MLink. You can see my status appearing here that it's gone through. And of course, it comes back through on the C4 side. So once again, we're seeing that come back through on C4. and we're watching kind of all that track data coming in from the platform. I can do all the kind of normal features and capabilities, declutter, inspect any tracks. Again, as you saw before, kind of play with any of those things that I'd like to play. In this case, I hadn't imported that route when I was sending it in MissionLink, so I'm going to go out manually and just bring that back in so I've got the context of where the aircraft is on its flight. And again, you're ensured continuity of data, and everyone can see exactly what's happening with the same picture back. Just by clicking on the notifications, it can open up the proper event panel. I can then sort that panel by time, however I want to sort it. And there you can see the most recent one is accepting that task and that the route is being flown. So you get lots of flexibility on how the system interprets it. This next section, we're going to talk a little bit about doing some mission operations. So in this case, you're watching just some basic AIMS things happening. I'm adding comments to tracks. Those, of course, pass through. I'm going to be able to grab images. Those, of course, pass through to C4 and are also recorded in our mission database and all that local data on the ISR client. In this case, we'll do a new EO capture, make a video clip, all those annotations of the map you're used to seeing. And those things, of course, feed right over into the C4 picture. Now, a little different user interface. So we talked a lot about new user profiles and ways to work it. So in this case, you can see I'm starting up a new mission. I think you'll see the route come really fast this time because you can see it kind of on the map sides. So you'll see we're going to connect up in a second here, and there's that route that we consumed from the MissionLink. Same concept. I'm picking my platform and so on from the dialog, but you'll notice a bit of a new UI look for ISR. So it's got full screen UI. There's that AML panel. And I've actually got two independent maps that are showing up here now. So I've got a vector chart down the right-hand side, and I've got a raster WMTS map up on the main side. I can cycle those. Again, I can access all kinds of things with hotkeys and basic interactions. So it really gives a lot of flexibility with the mission system side. And of course, we're all about capturing that data as effectively as possible. You're seeing TAC overlays, grabbing still frames, and all that kind of good stuff. And again, we'll look at the events panel. In this case, we'll do another event. Again, just letting the folks at C4 know that I've accepted my mission, and I'm off and running now. Remember that if there were third-party tools that were interested in knowing when a mission started or when an operator accepted something, or if you really extend this beyond, what we're showing right now are interactions with the GUI. So the choice to pick an event from a list, that could be a single button press, or more importantly, that could actually be a sensor state that gets passed on from the software into the MLink components. So for example, a weight on wheel sensor, I could transmit back to MissionLink every time that a weight on wheel sensor goes to open, which means my platform is taken off. I therefore massively reduce radio communications and let that information flow as seamlessly as possible. Again, back into the notification side. So you can see I've got that notification. I can now see that the mission started from that other platform. And I can do really easy things like filter this list just by starting to type. So I just wanted to get that particular tail number, the CN, just by typing the CNFW. I get rid of all those extra messages. I'm just looking at that one message. Now, the next little piece of the demonstration is actually just a different look into ways to work within C4. So in this case, instead of browsing for the file, I'm actually going to do a drag and drop and just drop a route right into the system. Again, it detects that route and it's off to the races. So just another way that the GUI can interact in the same methods. What I hadn't even realized, and thanks Jane for letting me know, is if we actually had another piece of text that might be an instruction for that route, we'll actually be able to bring both those things in an automated fashion and make sure all those queues go up as well. So again, it's not really MissionLink, but it's how does the rest of the ecosystem interact with the technology. And that is covering off most of our demo. We're back to kind of just using the software now in the good old-fashioned way. What can I do with my routes? That route I brought in this case was not the same route for a change. So that route appeared in AIMS, and look, it's a search grid that's nowhere near Texas right now that we can kind of take a look at. So that's it for the demonstration. I would like to make sure we leave some time for questions. I see a few of them in the pile there.
Yes. Thank you so much, Scotty and Mark. This was super insightful. There are a few questions that we can go through. Let me check the box real quick. Okay, so we have one that says, are you using a data transport standard such as data distribution service to support data exchange between systems?
Oh, I'm going to let Mark. I could answer that notionally. Most of what you saw right now is CarteNav proprietary, but I'll let Mark answer if there's any kind of standard really being applied here.
Yeah, so I mean, to really get in detail, I'd probably have to pull in some other developers. For the most part, like Scott said, most of what you've seen is sort of CarteNav proprietary as far as sending tracks from AIMS-ISR to C4 and vice versa. Our technology is built on Google's flat buffers technology, which just compresses the data in a way to transmit it very quickly, and so it gets serialized and deserialized in each end. The For transmitting data in MissionLink, that's just a REST API using, and we're sending JSON data back and forth just over a simple HTTP connection. So that's pretty standard. And then, for other things, for communications with sensors within AIMS-ISR, again, those are all usually proprietary based on the sensor itself. And then we have to deal with handling how those things are coming across. But yeah, to get much deeper than that, we probably have to get back to whoever answered that question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. Another question that we have is they want a confirmation if we're providing a SDK and templates to support any sensor integration with AIMS-ISR. Is that so?
Yeah, so it would not be provided. So it's not like it comes with every piece. There's certain partners, only really strategic partners that we're providing that with, but we'd love to talk to anyone who's interested. And it really depends on kind of the opportunity and the deployment level.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for answering that. Are there any limitations in number of the tracks that can be ingested by AIMS-ISR?
I love this question. I'll tell a small narrative. We had a deployment, a couple years ago now, in a very busy area, and the dev team at one point decided to max out AIMS at 9,999 tracks because everyone said surely no one's going to consume 10,000 tracks, but the customer did over a long flight piece. So obviously, we don't recommend consuming tens of thousands of tracks. The software is very capable of consuming many thousands of tracks, and we have a lot of tools to help manage that data. Hardware, performance level, what else the software is doing, all comes to bear. But we're very easily in the 10 to 15,000 track range, sort of across the piece.
Okay, great. Thank you. If we end up marking a point of interest on AIMS, our ecosystem through range and bearing, does it automatically plan waypoints, mapping out the quickest and critical path?
Yeah, we have a number of tools that will give you ETAs and fastest pieces. It doesn't do any advanced route planning, but it gives you kind of what my total distance is between and all those range and bearing tools to help you plan. But there's not an automated route generation tool.
Okay.
When we're integrated with the FMS side, we can consume kind of the active FMS and also push waypoints and routes up to the FMS with all the proper certifications and software levels as required, of course.
Okay, great. What is the latency from frame capture, video in to video out?
That's a really, really interesting question. So at the ISR side, it really does depend on the tech stack, what encoder you're using, what decoders you're using, but it is very operationally usable, I think is the short way to do that. So with sort of software encoders all the way through, we're in around 150 milliseconds, somewhere in that typical piece. Again, the hardware for the encoding side really does matter, but it is quite operational. The goal is to make sure you could operate ISR just with the streaming video. The rest of the system, of course, by the time you do sort of the rest of the pass through and any conversions down to the ground, you have some other extra potential latency kind of to what hits the bottom side, but all the normal standards you see elsewhere would be applicable there. We do like, a shout out for High Vision. We've done a lot of High Vision integration and some great products to kind of pass that piece through.
Got it. Thanks for answering that. Would you like to highlight anything in terms of the maximum resolution or maximum frame rate that the software can handle? Is there anything that
there's a couple different pieces, and there's kind of how we animate the software and kind of what that looks like at that piece. There's what happens kind of in that video component, which is usually around 30 frames per second in the video piece typically. There's a lot of variance just depending on what the operator wants to accomplish. Mark, what do we right now have our frame rate on the map update? We did some lowering of that recently just to really get some more performance out, didn't we?
Yeah, we recently lowered that to, I think, 15 frames per second, and that was to satisfy basically an environment with tens of thousands of tracks. Because
exactly.
we were again trying to render all those at once and in that particular environment. But that the frame rate is a little bit adjustable, and we've experimented with 50 frames per second or 60 frames per second on the map itself. Again, with a reasonable track count, or what I say is a reasonable track count in a couple thousands, that seemed to work fairly well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Can we ingest all STANAG data streams to AIMS?
Yeah, we ingest a lot of STANAG. It's like STANAGs themselves. I'd hate to say yes, we consume them all. We do have lots of 4609, 4607. There's a number of standards we support. Not fully. I would say that kind of very carefully. Doing a full STANAG integration is always a bit interesting. But we do support a number of them. If you have applications for them, please let us know. We're always looking at inducting more of those as time goes by. And obviously, sensors that produce STANAG data, we'll typically be doing those first because that's how we need to consume it.
Got it. Thanks, Scott. How does AIMS-C4 interact with the wider common operating picture tools and data links, such as Link 16? How do you manage the correlation?
Yeah, so right now, and I'll let Jane hop in a little bit if she wants to correct me. At the current time, we don't do any actual correlation. We're very much giving display and management tool sets. So we can consume, when I talked about those third-party tracks, those could be link tracks that we're receiving to give those back in, but we're not doing any data aggregation currently in the software. The way the software is designed, though, is that we could actually have a correlation engine or a fusion engine playing a role there as well. But go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, no, I was just going to really build on that currently we provide tools for the users to curate their picture into the view they particularly want at the time, but we don't currently have any tools to do that specific correlation to identify that this track is the same as that track coming from different systems. But that's certainly something that we are going to be looking at in the future.
Okay, great. Is the software developed in accordance to the RTCA DO178? Could it directly interface to FMS such as Garmin GTN?
Yeah, so a couple of things. At the fundamentals of DO178 best practices, all the software has all the kind of repository management. We do not have the certification of the software or all the components. It would be enormous. We leverage OpenGL, we do Vulkan, we do all kinds of cool technologies to give a really great experience. This is where our ability to decompose the system into framework services and also into plugins is really essential. So we have had certification at FMS level with what we call our FMS push plugin. So it's really one very small piece of code that could be very controlled and deployed. So it's much easier to do a DO certification as required.
Okay.
But the whole software stack is not, nor will ever be DO certified.
Fair. Thank you so much, Scott. So we have a question that says that probably a long time ago, AIMS or CarteNav was very flexible in terms of you could have it in any color, so as long as it was black. Given the other options out there, such as CAEs or AGOMS, what do you see as the USP for a mission task specialist when it comes to AIMS in today's climate?
That's a loaded question.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you mind rewording that question for me again? Sorry, I kind of missed a piece of it.
Sure, will do. So it says that historically, AIMS and CarteNav flexibility was in a way that you could have it in any color so long as it was black. Given
Okay,
the
so I
other
got the sarcasm. I
options,
love it.
yeah,
Okay, I
okay,
want to make sure I got the piece. So
okay,
yeah, I would say one of the and whoever made the comment, I will be very entertained to correspond afterwards, because you're absolutely right. AIMS-ISR, its history was there was a single color of a single format that kind of did its thing. One of the things we've done, very gradually over the last 15 years, and more suddenly in the last 3, is provide a tremendous amount of flexibility from everything from how your icons display, what size they are, to all the great theme work that we have. So whether you want it actually in dark or bright fuchsia, you have all those options that you'd like to have. So it really is about understanding the ConOps, understanding the environment, and how do we actually gain mission success, and to a level that I'm pretty excited about, having been around for a while. It's not about saying this is how it's done in the same way. Now it's understanding here's some best practices and what's your feedback to make sure it works the best way for your operators. So whether that's a bright, clear display of a different color, or whether it's having larger buttons or larger text or a big wide screen with one single button on it, we can basically do all those things now.
great. Thank you so much for answering that. I think that was about it. In case there's anything you guys would like to add before we end the session.
I'll turn it over to my colleagues, and then I'll maybe close off.
No, I don't think there's anything much more to add. The one thing that I wanted to make sure to emphasize from this is that on the AIMS-ISR side, we really very much are trying to work towards that flexibility, like that that Scott was mentioning, so that again, whatever your theme, whatever the colors, however you want the layout, however big you want the buttons, all that kind of stuff that we can do, we can configure the product as necessary for any particular user, any particular ConOps.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add a couple of things that we've got coming up shortly in C4. As you saw from Scott's great demos, the ability to display routes is now available in C4. What he didn't show was you can actually create those routes within C4. Whether it's just a basic route by entering a series of waypoints you can create, and shortly we'll be able to also support the ability to create those search and rescue patterns. So whether that's creeping line search or whatever, that's coming shortly. As well as creating and maintaining sort of points of interest in C4. That's another new feature that's coming shortly. And those really are a new step for C4, if you like, of actually creating data within C4 rather than C4 purely being the sort of a receiver of data. You can actually now create those data elements within C4 and pass them out to other systems as need be. And one other thing is that you saw sort of coverage displayed in ISR. We've also got those tools coming in C4 as well. So whether it's on your route for sort of planning purposes, sort of mission planning situation, where you could apply, whether you're looking at a radar range, over different altitudes throughout the route, or just a basic visual ranges, you can apply those to routes to help you in your planning. And then also looking at sort of theoretical as well as actual coverage over live missions, looking at where the platform is and where it's been, and seeing what range was available at that time. So those are some of the key things I wanted to stress that C4 is shortly going to be able to provide users.
Awesome. Thanks, Gene. I guess there's probably a couple things. I saw a couple extra questions pop in as we were closing off. One thing to remember is that we are very much a geospatial platform. So we integrate to pretty much any kind of sensor you can imagine. So whether that's ESM, direction finders, third-party tools, if there's a line of bearing or a GPS position or some kind of geospatial data to present, we can do that. We also integrate to devices. So we can also command things to do certain things based on elements. So that is really our specialty, is sort of bringing all these complex systems together in a way that ensures the mission success. And as Jane alluded to on the futures piece, our whole goal is to build a software. And again, I think I did really well to keep this tight, lower than the hour. Anyone who knows, I could go on about any one feature for a long time on both products. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to do kind of more in-depth demos. And there's a lot of capabilities built in and a lot of things coming on the road. And as always, we welcome your feedback. So happy to chat anytime.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Scott, Mark, Jane. Not very often we get to see these capabilities at the detail level that we did. So thank you so much for that. And thank you everyone for attending it. If there are any questions, like Scott mentioned, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
And the last thing I'll say before you sign off is thanks to the CarteNav team, the developers and team behind it that makes some great stuff, because it's fun to be at the front end showing it off.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.